And I'm Lenny Kluge.
We're two immigrants living in Chile, bringing you information on news, cultural topics, travel, business, and more.
The Chile Today podcast is the first ever bi-weekly English news podcast.
For more information about the news topics you will hear today, check out our news affiliate, chiletoday.cl.
If you have any questions, stories to share, or just want to say hi, message us on Instagram at Chile Today Podcast or email us at chiletodaypodcast@gmail.com.
If you're feeling generous, rate and review us so that more people can find our podcast. Hey, Lenny.
Hi, Bethany.
How are you?
Take two. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's been a long week.
It's been a terrible week, man.
It's been quite a week.
Quite a week, yeah.
Yeah, never stay up till 2 a.m. by accident watching a reality show when a war is declared on another country.
Oh,
It gets real creepy.
Yeah, like that's actually the reality show these days.
Oh my God, it's not entertaining. I don't like it. Can we cancel it?
Yeah, man. Honestly, like I usually don't get, like, I'm very good at like, kind of like compartmentalizing the news. Like I usually don't let it get to me, but this time it got to me. Like it's just like having in like a how do you call it, like in war of attack, like war of aggression, like for the first time in Europe for like since World War II and everything. I don't know, it just hit too close to home. So
yeah,
we've been talking a lot about this just before.
So did this hit differently than it did for you in 2014 when there was the annexation of Crimea and all of that?
Yeah, because it was a lot more underhanded in a way. It was more, I mean, and I'm not saying that, like, there's been war and conflict all along. We got like the civil war in Syria, we got like Afghanistan,
there's still wars going on.
But
we're just
it
not
was like, I think what it made it different, it was like a war. It was like a war of it was like a war of aggression. It was just like, we declare war on you, boom. Like, this has not happened
Is it because you're German?
In a way, I wouldn't even, like, okay, you're asking this tongue-in-cheek, but, like, I think it has something to do with it. No, I'm not.
I'm honestly, like, is there, like, some intergenerational trauma here that's like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because, I mean, it's like, it's just, like, the first time since World War II that actually one country invaded another country, like, openly, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, again, you know, it was not subterfuge. It was no, like, smoke and mirrors. It was just like, we're going to declare war on you. We take this country. This is okay. This is
Jesus.
new.
Yeah. I mean, my trauma comes from please don't invade, U.S., please don't invade. Because, you know, that's, you know, we got out of Afghanistan like 7 seconds ago and we've been waiting for a war, right? So I was like, please, no, stop, please.
Yeah. Well, I guess we could fill an entire hour or more talking about what's going on over there.
Well, let's
check out our new podcast.
Check out our new podcast.
Lenny and I talk about. That's too soon. Too soon.
Oh no.
Yeah, but it's shitty, and I hope.
Well, you know, our thoughts. No matter what I don't care what anybody listening's political affiliations with. My thoughts are with the civilians.
Yep.
Whatever side you were on. If you're a Russian, if you're a Ukrainian, my heart goes out to the civilians and the people who are displaced and the people who are in fear. My heart goes out to those people, and war sucks. It's never gonna not suck, and it sucks.
Yep, word up.
We're down.
How about some good news for a change? We got something new here.
Oh, guys,
want to tell them about
excited.
it, Bethany?
Okay, yes. So I'm so excited. We've been working on this for a long time. It's actually still in the works, but we finally launched our first tier for Patreon.
Woo!
Yes, we only have one tier right now, which is the $5 level of Patreon. We're going to have other levels for those of you who want to get real fancy and have real extra content.
Dollar
bill, that
y'all.
takes a lot of more logistics. But right now, if you join at the $5 level, you're going to be obviously supporting us, helping us be able to buy better equipment, bring you maybe some more sophisticated. I don't know, more sophisticated. Maybe I spoke too soon.
Well, at least better beer for the recording sessions.
At least there you go.
Not that I'm complaining about the Becker, but
yeah, we're drinking Becker, which is Chilean's Budweiser, which is fine. I don't mind it. I'm from Arkansas.
It's good. It's all good.
It's good for me. I like it. It's hot today. And it's really great. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we're doing. A lot of you guys email us and message us all the time about tips, and sometimes we always love for you guys to email us and message us, and we want to help you out, but we're making printables of different kinds of tips for you, like Right now, we're gonna bring you new tips every month, and every month, if you join, you'll have access to all the tips that we have. So right now, for example, we're working on you can access best bars to watch international sports, because we know that when you live in another country, when you visit another country, you want to watch your team. Whether you're from the U.S., you're from Germany, wherever, you want to watch your team, and it helps you feel more at home. So we have tips for those things.
Woo.
We're going to bring you tips
Sports.
for all sorts of things. We also have discount tickets for events in Chile. Maybe there's events that you can go get a free beer, all that kind of stuff you can get access to exclusively on our Patreon. And we're going to be bringing you more levels with some merch and stuff.
love sports.
And some awesome things.
I watch sports all the time.
The only sports you watch is when Germany plays.
It's like
So
I
German of you.
love when one sports team plays another sports team. They outsports
only
each
sports I
other,
watch.
and they do more sport. One team does more sportsing than the other team, and then they outsports the other team, and then they got the sports.
He jokes, but when Germany plays football, when Germany plays soccer, this guy acts as if he is the biggest soccer fan that has ever soccered.
Well,
There's been times when I've had like a get together and I was like, Lenny, are you coming? He's like, oh, no, I can't. And I was like, wait, what's going on? He's like, Germany's playing soccer. I'm like,
duh.
I'm like, you don't even like sports. So
What? That's. Why would you even say that?
he only likes it when it's the only thing the Germans can cheer for anymore. Okay.
Oh, this got dark very quickly.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay. But yeah, so we're bringing you that. We also have some events coming up that if you're on the Patreon, you'll get to either go free or get some free stuff when you go. So, Lenny, tell us about those events.
Those events. So we got a couple of events coming up. The next one would be in March, because by the time you listen to this, it might actually already be, well, you know,
No,
might
it'll be
the
the very last day of
the
February.
last day of February.
We have one tomorrow, but
Yeah,
you
we're
guys
talking.
are going to miss that.
Yeah,
Unless you already went, which we love you if you did.
Yeah, because we're talking to you from the past. So there's an upcoming event on March 17th, which is
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day. That is correct. And we're going to combine that St. Patrick's Day with our famous horrible movie night.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to watch...
Leprechaun.
Of course we're going to watch Leprechaun.
Leprechaun.
Leprechaun. No, I've never watched that movie. That's kind of
I've
like...
never seen it
it's a
either.
straight up horror flick, isn't it?
It's I think so. It's like B movie, old 90s, 80s, 90s something. Penguin was saying 90s movie. Apparently Jennifer Aniston was in it for like 2 seconds or something. It's supposed to be horrible, but
it's a horrible horror movie.
It's a horrible horror movie. If you've never been to horrible movie night, it's just fun. It's super casual. You go, you sit, you drink a soda or a beer if you're a drinker, you order some fish and chips, laugh your heads off with other people. Like, you don't want to sit by yourself and watch a horrible movie, but when you're with people, it's funny. And it's also sort of going to be slash a St. Patrick's Day, but kind of get together, like hang out, maybe play some board games. I don't know. It's going to be fun.
Hold on, did you say slash or slasher St. Patrick's Day?
Slash St. Patrick's Day, but also
because-
slasher.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense. That's what I'm asking.
I've never seen Leprechaun. Is it a small leprechaun that just murders people?
I mean...
Who thinks of these things? Why is the leprechaun so angry?
I mean, small people that murder... Small things that murder people. Chucky, I mean, it's not a new thing. Just saying.
Okay. That's a fair point.
Yeah, see?
Why are people freaked out by small things? I'm small.
Do you
People
think
are
I'm
not
not
scared.
freaked out right now?
True.
So we got that horrible movie night. You better come. It's for free, as you already mentioned. I think it's
That
absolutely
one is
free.
but if you are on our Pates, you're gonna get free stuff when you go, like free alcohol. Or if you're not a drinker, we'll give you
It's
free
like doubly free.
juice or soda or something.
Yeah.
Instead.
It's like we pay you. Well, we don't pay
It's
you.
literally you get your money back if you actually join our Patreon and go to the events.
No kidding. We're not good business people.
So, but we want to encourage you all
Take
to
advantage
join,
of
create a
us.
community. Yeah, take advantage of us. It's very consensual.
Yeah, right.
Consensual advantage. Okay.
Now, if a horrible movie night is not really your thing, you rather go out to see some stand-up comedy. Well, guess what?
There's a stand-up comedy show on March 19th.
Exactly. That's
my
2
birthday.
days after. And that's your birthday.
I know, but I'm not going to be
But you're
there.
not going to be there
No, I'm
because
gonna be
you're not going to risk it.
self-quarantining.
You're not
No,
going to
no,
risk
no.
it.
I'm going to be self-quarantining.
Because-
I'm traveling to the U.S. to go to Disney World. You're wearing you're wearing, it's funny because he's wearing a Mickey shirt, which is very me, and I'm wearing one of those shirts that has a weird animal on it doing a weird thing, which is very him.
And which is also
a shirt he got me.
Yeah.
So it's like we're dressed as each other today.
Aw, so cute.
Aww. So anyway, it's a bilingual stand-up comedy show. It's going to be at Fiddler's, and I think it's probably going to start at 8 p.m.
Yep.
8 p.m. 3,000 pesos to get in, or if you're on the Patreon, it's free.
Everybody get on the Patreon.
Everybody get on the Patreon, support us, help us buy new mics for fuck's sake. And
we should put have a subliminal recording on this episode. Like, we
what
play
are you
it
doing
backwards.
with your fingers? You know they can hear that, right?
Okay, maybe they should. I'm just saying that we should put a subliminal recording on the record, like, so when you play it backwards, it goes like this, get on Patreon, you know, something like that would be awesome, like Marilyn Manson style.
Oh, by the way, that's patreon.com/the Chile Today Podcast. The is important because somehow Chile Today Podcast
special.
was already taken, so it's the Chile Today Podcast.
Ha.
But yeah, so that's it. It's going to be really good. Linny might even be telling jokes.
Yeah.
I think Pinguino's going to be telling jokes. Are you on the 19th?
Well, now
he
he
says
is.
no. Are you? But are you thinking about
maybe
it,
he's not.
Pinguino? He says maybe. So if you want Pinguino to tell jokes, message us on Instagram at Chile Today Podcast. That's without the.
Yeah. Hey, if we get, tell you what, if within 1 week we get at least 5 Patreon subscribers, I'm in.
Hey, look, we got one.
Well,
right now.
four more to go, and I'm in.
Which sounds sad, but I literally launched it like 3 hours ago. And the first patron was my boyfriend, and I didn't ask him to join. I was like, we finally launched our Patreon. I worked really hard on it.
And he was like, oh, that was you?
Mean. He did it for you, Lenny.
Oh, because he wants to see me up on stage there.
There you go.
Awesome.
So yeah, so now we got news.
We got news. So we got COVID update.
COVID.
Yeah, because...
Have you heard of this thing? It's called COVID-19.
Yeah.
Coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
It's sweeping the nation and the international community. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, no, because since we were talking about the war in Ukraine, I thought we were talking about something that's a little bit more fun. So we're talking about COVID right now.
It's called Corona because that means crown because of the way that it's shaped. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, that is so fascinating. So we get...
I promise this isn't a podcast from 2019 right now.
Yeah, that'd be... Oof, yeah. Well, yeah, I just told you, like, we're talking to you from the past, but not that far back.
Not that far back.
So, however, I'm going to go one day further back because as of Thursday, February 24th, we had 30,675 cases.
Patreon subscribers? No.
That would be, like, I'd be rolling in it right now, you know? I probably have my own island or whatever. No, we had corona cases. The day before that, it was around 25. The day before that, it was actually under 20. So, like, it made a little jump again. But it is falling, thank God. Like, we reached the peak of the wave, and right now the positivity stands at 25.62%. I compared that to my notes for the last time when we were recording, and it was like more or less stable. Like, the fluctuates around 24, 26%, which is also good. However, the ICU occupation right now is at 94%.
Oh, no.
The thing is, and that's the thing, is like right now the numbers are going down, but you got to remember that the ICU occupation is a lagging indicator because once you get corona, it can take up to 3-4 weeks for you to get hospitalized. So like that, we probably going to see an increase in this still. But I prefer to stay positive here. See that before
Please
we
do not
reach
stay positive. Stay negative.
Yeah, I stay negative, but I'm get out. Get
I
out.
like my own jokes. Pinguino likes my jokes. You guys can't hear him, but he laughs at my jokes.
Well, you pay him for it anyway, with our big old Patreon money. So yeah, the ICU occupation at 94%. Let's hope that it's not going to reach 100% until the downturn of the wave is going to leave its mark on the ICU occupation too. I think so. So that would be great. Now, another thing is that last week, 223 children aged 5 or younger were hospitalized last week, which is actually a mass. Yep. Which
is it with COVID or is that just the number of children hospitalized?
No, with COVID. And that was a massive increase compared to an average of 13 per week in last December.
And children are starting school next week. Or when you're hearing this, children in Chile are starting school.
And that's one of the factors.
In-person school.
Yeah, and also like the thing is that vacation is one of the factors there. The thing is like these kids.
Just never take your kids on vacation. The solution's easy. Leave them at
Exactly,
home.
just lock them in the room, throw
Lock
away
them
the key, like leave a cold
like they
pizza
did in the
there, and
80s.
that's it. Yeah,
Like they did in the 80s.
leave
Give
them a
them
can
some
of
cat
beer.
food.
And that should be fine, you know. So the thing is like these kids are also like healthy kids. It's like gotta point that out. Those are not kids with comorbidities or anything.
Are these kids that have been? Do we know the age level? Like, are these vaccination kids?
No, you're touching on the point because only 60% of all kids that could get vaccinated did get the shot. Now I don't know what is the percentage of the kids that were hospitalized, but probably a very high percentage of those were not vaccinated.
Sure.
Because, as I just said, only 60% of the kids that could have gotten vaccinated got vaccinated because people still tell themselves that kids don't get as sick as adults do, which is mostly true.
But not Omicron is.
But Omicron
not
is
the
a different
same.
animal.
Yeah.
And the thing is also, even if it wasn't like that, if that results in fewer kids getting vaccinated overall, like the result is basically you get to see it like on a grand scale, like what's
sending
happening
them to
right
the adults.
now. And right now, Omicron is a different animal, as you just said. It's more harmful to kids apparently than Delta was. Experts expect a drastic drop of daily cases during the first 2 weeks of March already. Now, the peak was reached on February 11. She said peak. Now, the 7-day rolling average reached its peak on February 13th, so let's say tomato, more or less the same day. It is expected for the daily cases to plateau at a level of about 5,000 daily cases at around the first half of March.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a personal opinion. I'm not an expert, not by a long shot, but I think breaking the wave might actually take a little longer because, the end of the holiday season is right now.
Yeah.
Because cases might be going down now, but right now everybody and their mother's coming back from the beaches and everybody starts mingling again with people that have been in different places and mixing up and school starts and whatever. Same shit that happened last year.
Mm-hmm.
And also, don't forget, there's Omicron's daughter making the rounds right now, which is more transmissible, which is more virulent, and
very virile.
Mm-hmm. And it might actually contribute to slowing down the fall of the daily infections. So, yeah.
We're going to be paying attention. We're going to be updating you guys on that. I think everybody in this room, as far as we know, has not had COVID yet. Nobody in this room, which is like that in and of itself, there's 3 of us here.
Yeah.
None of us have had COVID that we know of.
And there's
That's
no
pretty
plastic
insane.
screens in between us.
Nothing. We're just spitting all over each other.
Well, you know how I know that I have COVID because
you have it?
Yeah, because I have no sense of taste. I've never had.
Oh yeah, you're very.
Oh God, such a bad joke.
Tasteless joke.
Nice. Well, speaking of mobility passes, actually, has a news piece from about 10 days ago that said that almost 900,000 mobility passes were blocked because their holders didn't even get their first booster shot. Now, this is about 7% of the 13.5 million people over 18 that received their first 2 shots.
Why wouldn't you get your second?
And that effectively puts the share of fully vaccinated. And I did the math there. This puts the share of fully vaccinated and protected people from 93 to 87%.
Right, because they usually say when they do the statistics, that it's X% of the population has had at least one vaccine, which is totally useless nowadays.
Yeah.
Because we need to be approaching our second booster.
You poop those antibodies right back out.
Right back out.
Yeah, through the poop.
Apparently.
We're being very serious today.
Yeah. Those people deserve to get their mobility passes blocked if they don't have their second. Well, how would you even do that?
Yeah, but that might be also another factor that, because if memory serves, the good old Omicron wave was breaking in most other countries by mid-February already.
Sure.
Now it's like, what's the same thing here actually? Okay,
right.
I take it back. But the thing is that this might also contribute to slowing the process a little bit, because we're not as a population right now, we're not as vaccinated anymore as we used to be.
87%.
It's still a lot.
Considering the rest of the world,
but still, man, almost 900,000 people falling out of that.
But also, I think that the government needs to do a heavier push. Well, first of all, Piñera's government has just fucked off, fucked right off. They do not give a shit about anything right now. And so, like, back when there was the first booster and everything before the elections, like, he was really getting his team to, like, push for those boosters. Now, like, I barely see any information or advertisements or encouragements about getting the next. They just don't give a shit. They're just. I've only seen the updates that say whose turn it is, but only when I'm scrolling through Instagram.
Yeah. Like,
and I'm not even paying attention.
I would suppose that probably once it gets into like the younger age brackets, probably then they're gonna up a little bit the PR campaign, because right now it's a very
I think they're just
small
waiting
age
to
bracket.
see what the new health ministry is going to do, because
could be too.
I mean, like, what, March 11th is when Boric is going to be inaugurated, hopefully not.
Inaugurated. Since you were just mentioning Piñera not giving a shit about nothing anymore, now, last Wednesday, the 23rd, the first shipment of 1.5 million Moderna vaccines arrived in Chile.
Oh, this is our first Moderna vaccines.
Yep, and which is going to be the first shipment of a total of, 2 or 3 million doses. I read conflicting accounts there. Is this going to be
our next booster?
And I'm not sure. It might be. Now, the thing is, there's actually one quote from Piñera which I thought a little bit bemusing, because he said, "De esta forma estamos facilitando el trabajo del próximo gobierno." It's like, this way we're going to be
we're going to help out the next government.
Yeah, we're going to help out the next. I was like, really, buddy, shut up.
Because Boric, he's just going to be like, no more vaccines. Or
it was kind of like, oh yeah, well, you want me to thank you now?
He is so trying so hard right now to, like, leave a legacy that's not the fact that he was president during the estallido, like during the uprising, and like made a total ass of himself during all the votes. Well, at least
he got the vaccination thing going for him.
No, I will always admit, credit where credit's due. Piñera kicked ass as far as getting those vaccines into our country, but I can do a whole episode about why. Because Chile is allies with both the U.S., Europe, and China, which is one reason why it was easier than most countries.
Write it out. Okay, well, last thing on the COVID docket is now the second booster shot. People, if you are over 55, write it down, because the second booster shot in the week from February 28th to March 6th is for people over 55 that have received... Fuck you. That have received their first booster until September 5th, 2021. I'm just going to pretend that I didn't hear that.
Okay, so I got bank news.
Ooh, as exciting as it gets.
Put that in your bank. Okay, so this is BBVA, which is, how do they pronounce it here?
BBVA.
BBVA, and I say BBVA because I like it. Are there BBVAs in Germany?
I don't think so. No, I don't think we have. It's a Spanish bank. It's was it Banco Bilbao, Vasco da Gama?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen it in the U.S., but so it is a big bank though, and they're opening a representative office in Chile, which is good and going to sort of like go back to some of the things we're going to be talking about in our main topic today, which is that there's a lot of international investment still happening in Chile, which is really good. So the wholesale banking division is committed to their clients, and the bank has therefore decided to open their office in Chile to reinforce its already strong value proposition for Latin America. And it says that Chile is an attractive market to them and many other banks, and they hope that they can grow with Chile as it has a good economic outlook, which that's really good coming from a bank.
Yeah, take that.
So, and this was news from today. So this is post Boric's election and everything. So if that puts you at a little bit of a relaxed state.
Post Boric times.
Yeah. So BBVA, BBVA.
BBVA.
Booby Bobby Boo Boo Boobies.
Baloo the bear.
They're actually allying with BCI, which is a bank here, to provide payment and collection services. Collection services sounds really scary. And cash management, and they will carry out transactions through BCI with BBVAs. Why is it BBVA? I don't get it.
Because if you would pronounce the V like they do in Chile, it would be BBVA.
Okay, Chile, this bank, gonna work with BCI for large multinational and local large corporations, for its clients, doing loans and all the things that banks do. Going to create more jobs, they say. Also, I have students who work for BCI, and it really makes sense to me that they're going to be partnering with BCI, because BCI is like one of the more innovative banks in the country. Yeah. They're the ones that created Match, which was like, if you don't know what that is, that's kind of like the what's called Vimeo.
Yeah, it's like a digital wallet.
There you go. For Chile, the first digital wallet for Chile. Yep.
Which you can also use if you're not a client of BC. I gotta point
Yeah,
out.
well, and the
I
thing
always
is
try
we've talked about this before, but this would be a good tip we could talk about on the Patreon, is if you don't have a bank in Chile, which a lot of immigrants don't have until they get their visas, you can use that wallet.
Yeah, get set up. Also, you can set up a virtual credit. We are not getting paid by them, by the way.
No,
I'm just saying, like,
absolutely not.
I'm trying to get my friends to use it because I think it's just convenient. Like,
It's super convenient.
yeah, and my friend is always like, still don't get why I should use it because it's easier to transfer money than like
But
getting out your
also,
multipass.
the thing about being an immigrant, you might be in trámite for like a year and a half, 2 years, however long, and you can't get a bank unless you have a root. But you can open a match.
Yeah, can you do that without a root?
You can borrow someone's root. All you need is a root. Okay, get someone's root,
All
find a
you
dead
need is
person, it's
root.
fine. But I mean, like, for example, I use my boyfriend's root for a few things because right now I'm in trámite and they won't let me do crap because, anyway, it's possible. Follow us on Instagram. Okay.
Exactly. So
anyway.
BCI is one of the more innovative banks, so it makes sense for them to partner with
Exactly,
BBVA.
with BCI. And so they're also going to be focusing on foreign trade and helping to encourage and facilitate foreign trade with Chile to other countries. So that's pretty interesting. And I think especially very timely with the topic that we're talking about today, which is, will Chile become Venezuela? The international community, they're very much still recognizing Chile as an emerging,
Stay
very,
tuned to
very
find out.
strong, stay tuned, part 2, strong economy, things like that.
Right.
What else do you got for us?
Well, sorry to say that, but I gotta go back to a very dark topic, the one that we just talked about at the head of the show, what's going on in Ukraine and Russia now.
Yeah.
Because it does have an impact on Chile. Like, it's far, far, far away, but since it's a big old thing that's going on and has impacts economically, financially,
I mean, it's
that
going
are
to have
going to be
impacts
felt throughout the
internationally,
world.
yeah.
Absolutely. Well, first things first, gotta say that we would be amiss not to mention that President-elect Gabriel Boric unequivocally condemned Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. In a tweet, he said, "Russia has chosen war to resolve conflicts. Chile condemns the invasion of Ukraine, the violation of the sovereignty, and the illegitimate use of force. Our solidarity is with the victims and our humble efforts with peace." Yes?
I was just going to also mention that, again, because of our topic today, Maduro from Venezuela did the opposite.
Okay. I thought you were talking about something. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
He actually has spoken to support Russia. So again, trying to draw differences here between the president-elect of Chile and Maduro.
Actually, sidebar, I did have that on my docket, but I was like, okay, too many news items. Maduro, like 2 weeks ago, he was not specifically talking about Boric, but he made a speech in front of whoever he's talking over there. And
who he talks to?
Yeah. I don't know, Congress or National Assembly, I don't know. And he was talking about the izquierda cobarde, I think he called them, like the cowardly left. And he made very strong allusions to basically
I think he's
what
mentioned
Boric
by name saying that before.
In that speech?
I don't know if it was in that speech, but I believe, or he said like Chile or something.
I mean, in that speech, I think he didn't bring him up, but in a way, I think it was just interesting to read because I think, like, in the early stages, just after Boric got elected, I think he was still trying to cozy up to him because he was like, well, he's also from the left. Like, we're one big happy family. And then he kind of like
We the new left. This is the new left.
Yeah, and then he kind of found out, okay, hold on, this is not really the old left. This is a different animal. And I think now he's trying to like distance himself.
We the millennial left. This is the millennial left. This guy's 36. His birthday was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
This is the millennial left. It's different.
Boom shakalaka. Anyway, so that was just a little sidebar. Now coming back to Russia and Ukraine. In terms of economic consequences, if you got a car, get a bike. Yeah, because
I mean, you should just do that anyway.
Yeah, you should.
If you live in a city,
anyway,
if you live in Santiago and
you're
you're not like working, like if you're not living in like I don't know, Puente Alto and working in Las Condes, get a bike.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or
and
if you can't ride a bike like me, take the metro, take a bus.
Right, and also like bike infrastructure is getting better by the week.
Dude, so many bike paths. If you're coming to visit here, there's so many bike paths now, and limes and stuff.
Yeah, they call them limes. Yeah,
limes. They have them in the U.S. They have limes
but
in
like
the US.
I've seen a lot fewer around the last years.
No, during the pandemic but before the pandemic they had like 6 different types, and then I think the pandemic took them away because they were like touch points, and then Lime was like, now we have a monopoly on all the scooters.
So yeah, as for modes of transportation, right now we will likely see a further increase in oil and gas prices, since Russia is actually the world's biggest exporter of natural gas and the world's second biggest crude oil exporter. I didn't know that either. Now,
Crude.
with the upcoming sanctions against Russia, this will decrease the available supply and therefore drive up the market price. This is what's to be expected.
Hold on to your butts.
Yeah. Now, and why did I mention this whole thing about Boric on top? Because since Boric already took a stance on the issue, it is in my opinion, rather unlikely that Chile will not participate in the round of sanctions that the world community will levy on Russia. So probably Chile is also going to be like, we're probably not gonna buy from Russia anymore. Like, they're not going to buy from Russia anyway, but it's not like...
Yeah, we don't buy from Russia. We buy from China. And China's even sort of been like, dude, Russia, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like...
No, actually, they were kind of...
But they released some... Yes, but not the way that the international community thought they were going to, because they're not supporting Russia. They're just like, we're staying out of this. We don't think that this invasion's good, but we're just going to stay the fuck out.
Yeah, I think they did say that.
I saw there was a tweet today.
Okay,
I might be wrong.
Getting off topic
I might be totally wrong. You know what? I eat those words.
Exactly. Now,
but Boris is going to work with China. That's what I'm trying to say. He's not going to stop working with China.
Now, this expected increase in fossil fuels right now is actually happening during a time in which fossil fuel prices are already rising steadily due to several reasons, which is like the bounce back effect in 2021 when people came back to work and everything. There was a summer with little wind for eolic energy production, for example.
The summer of love. The summer of wind.
True, the summer of no wind, and increased demand from Asia. All of a sudden, there's just a bunch of reasons that while fossil fuel prices are high now. So basically, that just like piles on top of that. Now, also, depending on how this conflict develops right now, in about 6 months' time, 6 months from now, we might see an increase in the price of flour. Flour as in
harina?
Yeah, as in harina, not flour as in pretty little flowers. Because Russia is also the world's largest and Ukraine the world's 5th largest grain exporter.
Interesting.
Now,
but
currently,
I will say that Chile does produce a lot of its own flour.
It does, but only 50%. For local
Well, we should be buying more of that anyway.
Yeah, no. Now, here's the thing. Now, currently, the silos are filled from domestic production, which, as I just said, it covers about 50% of domestic demand. But in a few months, Chile will have to start importing grain from abroad, something that they do anyway. Okay, an interesting question that Pinguino just brought up off air was, okay, how much grain do we export as a country right now? Now, I do not have the answer for that right now.
And knowing Chilean history, knowing the way that Chile works, we produce and export way more than we keep.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if we, as a country, might have a lot. We have a lot of flour brands.
Yeah.
Like, we're weird about grains here.
Yeah, I think the number of brands is not really indicative, but might be
worth
looking
No, I'm just saying,
into.
There's a lot. I don't, when you go to the grocery store, and specifically flour, I would be surprised if, I think only the Líder brand and the Jumbo brand are the ones that are not from Chile.
Yeah, they just mix it up at some point. Now, the thing is, Chile does not buy neither from Ukraine nor from Russia. They actually get their grain that they import mostly from the US, from Canada, and from Argentina and parts. But of course, it will impact the overall market price. So it doesn't really matter if they buy from Russia, from Ukraine, as soon as they start importing. Sure. And then basically Russia is the biggest and Ukraine is the 5th biggest exporter, are not available anymore. So this is going to really hike up the prices. The same goes actually for corn. That's also something that Chile exports.
Corn already costs $1 billion in this country anyway.
Yeah, and it's going to be the same effect right there. Look, a secondary effect of the price hikes, especially when it comes to the fossil fuels right now, is that it will keep up the inflationary pressure on Chile's economy. Now, allow me to do a little mansplaining here, a little podcast splaining, just a quick reminder that inflation is calculated basically by taking the average of a curated theoretical basket of goods, of which fuel, of course, is a big part. And if fuel goes up, so does the average, hence inflation goes up. And also, since virtually every good in this economy is part of a supply chain that hauls parts from components from point A to point B in trucks, it also has an indirect effect on the price of other goods in the basket. So basically, this is going to contribute to the inflation going up again.
Unless we get a train Just saying.
Yeah, but
No,
then you
I
also
was
have like,
having a joke.
okay,
I was
fine.
a joke. Okay.
Yeah, but that probably have an impact. Now, as a
No.
consequence, we can actually expect another interest rate hike from the central bank within the next couple of months, which is great if you're a saver, which is bad if you need to invest or need to take out a loan or whatever, And tell me about it. I'm importing stuff, so that's not gonna be
fun.
And also talking about importing stuff, we can also expect a strong appreciation of the dollar towards the peso. Because it's rather typical that whenever there's conflict somewhere, like
the dollar is
reigns.
shit right
now.
now.
Yeah, right now it's shit. Actually, I looked it up. But anyway, so basically the thing is like, it's usually what happens if somewhere war breaks out and there's uncertainty reigns. Like,
but it's been
investors
shit all
just rush
year.
they go to the dollar, they put their money into secure currencies like the US dollar. And which is also, by the way, will make the fuel even more expensive. Not only because the fuel by itself is going to be more expensive, but because we import fuel, we pay for the fuel in US dollar, and since it is expected to go up, it's going to be more expensive. Now, I think it's important to talk about an appreciation of the dollar and not a depreciation of the peso in this case, because it's technically the same.
No, it's not. Oh, I will die on this hill that's not technically the same.
But I'm getting there.
Okay,
but it is.
Okay.
Look, like if you.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, right. Technically it's the same semantically, not so much. I don't know if I use this word correctly, but it has to be, like, I got to point out that it has nothing to do with Chile right now.
Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say.
It's not about the politics, it's not about the economy, but it has to do with the global situation as a whole.
I think that it's important for people for the normal people, the vast majority of people who don't know a lot about, like, basing things on the dollar, because maybe if you live in the U.S., you don't know how the international community bases things on the dollar. Especially Chileans who are like, oh my God, our peso because of the dollar. And it's like, look, this has nothing to do. Right. This has nothing to do with Chile, everything to do with what's happening internationally. And I think that is super important to point out. I will die on the hill.
I wonder if, like, Axel Kaiser has already ate his humble pie. When he was like this right-wing economist, he was like, oh yeah, like I think it was like before Boris' election, it was like the peso's going to go up to 1,000.
Oh my gosh.
And everybody was like,
right-wing
really?
Assholes never have humble pie. I don't even know if they I've never ever seen one of them be like, you know what, I was wrong.
No.
Oh.
Now,
keep going.
Yeah. No, but as you already pointed out, like, I also just checked the peso and the dollar today, and it was actually the opposite effect. Like, because on Thursday morning, when basically news of the invasion of Ukraine became public, the dollar fell against the peso for some reason. And like when on Thursday, $1 got you about 820 pesos. Now it's around 800. So that was kind of like, okay, that was not
still really bad.
Yeah, but it dropped. That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah.
You would actually expect the dollar to appreciate. It didn't. Now, however, the euro did for some reason. Like, the euro jumped from 884 pesos on Thursday morning to about 920 by Thursday afternoon, and it has dropped to like 900 around.
I think everybody expected the U.S. to invade or to, like, go into the Ukraine, and I think that scared a lot of, like, investors, because I think so many people were like, is the U.S. gonna
I don't think there's anything to do with that, like, because you also got to consider
thanks.
but what I'm saying is just like, I think at this point, and look, if you listen
investing
to this,
is just magical unicorns. Okay,
exactly. If you're an economist, if you listen to this, and if you want to, like, tell me that I'm wrong, please feel free.
Please educate us.
Please feel free. But what I'm saying is, like, big punch. Big
puns. Here we go.
Big puns. Yeah, I'm good at that. A big part of the dollar reserves are not even held by the U.S. anymore. It's just all over the world.
No, but
China,
what I'm
whatever.
trying to say is
but where I'm going is, like, I think U.S. politics right now has a marginal impact on the interest rate of the dollar. Like, it's still perceived as a secure currency, and it doesn't really matter who's at the helm right now in the States. I mean, not saying that it doesn't matter at all.
I'm not saying who's at the helm. I'm saying that investments are literally just like people saying what's going to happen, and everybody was scared for the past couple of days that Biden was going to, because he had been saying for the past couple of weeks, like, we're going to have a strong and swift response to and so I think that makes sense that people would be, if they want more secure money, that they might even be taking their money out of U.S. currency and putting it into European currency.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. That it kind of makes sense in that way, but I still don't think that this
because
would be...
what are, like, average people who, like, don't know a lot about, like,
the average
war.
People who don't know about shit, they don't do these kind of transactions anyway.
I mean, I don't know, because average people who know a lot about stocks don't necessarily know a lot about war. And like, especially the way that Russia is kind of like uniquely positioned in a way of like of a war that we really haven't had in this lifetime. It's very different, right? It's not the war in Afghanistan. It's not the war in Iraq.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I'm saying.
the war with It's a war with Russia.
It's a war of aggression.
It's a big deal. So it makes total sense to me that people would be like, I'm scared. Where are my stocks
But you could
gonna
also
go?
say, is like, I'm not going to put my money in the euro because, man, this is right next door, you know? So,
I would just say I think either people are putting their money in something more secure in what they think it is, but like not like also selling or not investing.
buy Chilean pesos. We're far away. Buy Chilean pesos.
Have never been.
Make the dollar
I am
cheaper
so
for me.
happy that we have a giant mountain range all around us, guys. We safe. You want to come? Hey, you know what?
we're
Join
gonna
us at
hang
the
out
$5
together.
the Patreon level. We'll give you tips on how to immigrate. Okay?
Hey, dude, give us $5 on the Patreon. We may even talk to you.
I will talk to you either way. I like you. You that listening.
Well,
you're my friend.
I'm tier 2.
Okay.
Anyway, so much about like the consequences that this war will bring to Chile. So be ready to pay more for fuel, for gas. Be ready for more inflation.
I have more
interest
to add
rates.
to that though, my dues.
Bah, please go ahead.
Okay, so
Oh my
here's
God.
the thing. I have more things to like talk about how Chile might actually be more suited international, like of all the countries in the world, actually is benefiting a lot right now from Chile's economy. Codelco has a huge surge in profits right now. And Codelco, if you don't know, is the largest copper producer in the world, and it is actually a nationalized copper producer. And it is being boosted by the fact that copper prices are really high right now. And in the last year, the prices have completely jumped. So it went from 2.1 billion, for example, to 7.4 billion in just a year, the price of copper.
Come again?
So
From 2 point?
it went from like 2.1 billion to 7.4 billion.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And so
In case you haven't noticed. That's
yeah,
a lot.
that's the numbers got bigger. So that's a lot. And Codelco is also
Welcome
starting.
to Math Today.
This is the Math Today podcast. I would never be on that podcast. Only if they were like, see, this is a good study on how someone who wasn't well educated in math lives their lives. How do you do this, Bethany? How do you get by every day? Well, not well, sir.
Well, you know, I just know that 2 plus 2 equals 5 and, you know, just do my thing.
All right. Codelco also, I read in the news today, is also starting to invest in lithium, which is also a really great thing, which Chile has, I think, the second largest reserve in the world of lithium.
Was it after Bolivia or?
No, definitely not Bolivia.
No,
I don't
I
know.
thought Bolivia had bunch of.
I'm not quite
No?
sure. So, blah, bloop, blah, what am I doing? So, in 2021, the Codelco produced 1.618 million tons of copper, and we're already having production estimates to do 1.728 million tons of copper. So that's pretty good. So copper, the cost has increased 2.6% to 1.372 per pound of metal. I don't know exactly. Numbers. Okay, it's predicted to continue to rise, and it is thought that the effects of the fallout from the Russian invasion of Ukraine is not going to have a large impact on this industry. They said unless there's something completely unforeseeable that happens, which, you know, that is,
You know, Putin.
it could happen, right? It could happen. But that's, again, one other, so you just were very pessimistic in what you were talking about, flowers. But
Flower power.
we still have this nationalized entity that is growing and continuing to grow and adding more resources to it. Lithium, I think they have didn't we talk about hydrogen also? Lots of stuff going on.
Codelco, I don't.
Last week?
Yeah, there was something about hydrogen, but I think Codelco wasn't really part of that, was it?
Yeah, I think
Was
so.
it? Yeah?
I think
Okay,
so.
Okay, Mom's.
Hey, you know what?
gotta
I
shake
could be
my
wrong.
head.
I don't know if this is the first time you're listening to us. We're not professionals. We just like this country and like talking to each other.
Talk smack about this. I mean, talk to each other.
I mean, we love it, but we also can, do a little good old roast of the country too.
Roast.
Oh my God! Don't even again missing Arkansas so bad right now. Okay, what do you got?
Well, I got a little bitty something. So I was going through the news last week, and actually the conventional constitution popped up a lot lately because they're getting close to the deadline.
The Constitutional
And the
Convention.
thing is, like right now, I got the feeling, and I'm not talking about one specific thing here, but what did I say? What?
Convention Constitutional or something.
Oh, I did. Oh boy, well I gotta check my brain, man. So
Oh, it's been bad lately.
yeah, so they've been kind of under fire lately because and more so than usual because they've been under fire from day one, but a little bit more so than usual, I think, because for one, it has been criticized for kind of slacking, since they will have to hand in the first draft in a bit more than a month or 4 months if you add the 3 months of extra time that they can apply for, which they most certainly will. There's really no way they're not going to do that, right? And also, there have been kind of what came to the forefront is
Why is anybody surprised? This is Chile. We're always late with things.
well, I can't really, because I'm always the last one to show up to these recording sessions, and
That's true.
So anyway, so also like its recent proposals to abolish the Senate and the changing of its political system from a bicameral to a unicameral system has really raised some eyebrows. And I think in the wake of this, there was this movement, Amarillos por Chile, figureheaded by journalist and university professor Christian Warnken, has emerged. And you gotta know that Christian Warnken, he's not a right-wing guy. Like,
He's a grumpy guy.
He's a grumpy guy, but you might be critical of him because he was critical about Boric, he was critical about the Constitutional Convention, but he's not a right-wing guy. Like
He's not
liberal.
Udi. He's not Udi. He's definitely right of moderate, I would say.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
No, I really don't think
He's
so,
just being
but-
a dick.
Well, he's in his right to criticize things.
I mean,
Now-
anybody has the right to criticize. Doesn't mean they're not a dick.
Yeah. So this movement mainly criticizes the convention's tendency towards what they call like a maximalist ideology. So what they mean that instead of constructively focusing on improving the existing institution, their focus is on demolishing those institutions and replacing them with something new, like come hell or high water. Like really, like we gotta do something new. Doesn't really matter if it's better or not. So that's kind of like
That's what he's saying.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm saying. I'm a little bit like
Right.
I'm exaggerating here a little bit, but that's kind of like the skinny of
when
it.
all your institutions were like put there by a dictatorship, it makes sense that you want to replace them.
Yeah, well, okay. This could be argued about. Like, honestly, personally, I'm not versed enough in the subject matter to really have like a qualified opinion
The right
here.
wing's just butthurt that they're
But-
not getting any of their things passed, because what's happening is the right wing's putting things forward and they're not even getting to the voting block
No, but this
floor.
is he's not about that either. Like
No,
I really don't think that.
he in particular is not about that, but like so many right wing people are like, they won't even vote on our stuff. It's like because you have to have a certain amount of votes
Yeah.
within the convention to even get it to an actual like real vote to see if it's going to be part of the end product. And they're like, this is not fair. I'm like, it is fair, bitches. It's called democracy. So calm the fuck down. If you don't get your shit voted on, shut up. Like that's
Right.
we had this entire vote. We went through this estallido to get here. If you don't like it,
Yeah. Well, there's something.
sorry.
There's something to be said about communication to the public. Actually, I'm going to get to that. Now, there was actually one thing that happened last week that really caught my attention because the Human Rights Watch director of the Americas, called Tamara Taraciuk, I think it's pronounced, she asked the Constitutional Convention to reject an article that is currently being discussed that would criminalize denying human rights violation. And the argument for her plea is that the language in the article is vague, ambiguous, and does not respect the international standards of freedom of expression. Now, that's a big one, I think. And that's
Sure.
because one of the foundations.
but it hasn't been voted on yet.
No, it hasn't been voted on yet, but I think the fact that I think it has been pre-voted on or something like that. It's out
there's
there.
they have those.
In circulation. And because, remember, and I don't know if we talked about it, if it was really, because we talked about this last time we got together, I don't know if it was in the last episode or in this one, because one of the foundations of the Constitutional Convention's legitimacy is that it's bound to adhere to international treaties, and they have to be very careful here. So
if it's bound to yes, cooperate with international treaties, then it wouldn't even matter if the vote or not, because it has to be rewritten. Also, there are so many different vetting processes that these things that are voted on have to go through.
Yeah, and now here's the thing, and that's actually where I'm getting at with this whole thing. I think there's something to be said a little bit about the communication to the public, because I do agree in a way with criticism of like another member of the Amarillos por Chile movement, who's called José de Gregorio. He used to be the head of the central bank back in the days. He said, and I'm loosely translating here, If there's something failing in the convention, it's their connection with the citizenry, showing us what it is they are working on, pointing out and debunking fake news that make the rounds. There is no clear communication, so that when someone goes to the website, they would find a page that tells them what it is that they're working on the one side, and on the other side, the details of the subject matter.
There needs to be somebody who's assigned to doing that.
And I think I absolutely agree with him, because so far, and I think you might agree here too, I think the Constitutional Convention has not done a very good job communicating the work to the public, but instead has left a rather chaotic impression. I think they need to change that, maybe hire a PR manager or something like that.
I agree with you. I'm not sure if they're... My only thing about the way that Chile functions as far as like governmental entities and judicial entities and things like that is that they're only allowed to hire a certain amount of people and have a very, like, for example... the judicial power in Chile is not allowed to hire more than X number of people. It doesn't matter if their workload is so much that every single person is losing sleep forever and never and ever. If the judicial power is voted on by whichever president to only have 10 people, they can only have 10 people. So if we're talking about the Constitutional Convention, which I don't know if they have the same types of rules, like, it would be great, but whose job is that to do? Whose job is it to? Because that's a huge response. That's a full-time job, right? But we also have to remember that this Constitutional Convention is working very much an uphill battle with the current administration. And like, remember when like they got their first like day, they didn't even have computers. They didn't even have updated data. So all I can imagine is, I 100% agree. There needs to be more. Anytime there is clarity to the public about what is going on, there is no faults there. I'm just saying, I think that there might be some things outside of their control in this moment. I can't imagine being in their shoes right now. Like, just like, and being in their shoes, and then also somebody being like, can one of you guys like be in charge of communicating every single thing to the public?
Right. No, and I'm also
like,
absolutely willing to give them the benefit of the doubt, because as you just said, I don't think there's so much in a clinch with the current administration, because as you said, like, the current administration is kind of like lame duck. They don't give a fuck anymore.
I mean,
now, right? But in the beginning, you're absolutely right. There was like the infrastructure wasn't set up, nothing, and also you got to consider this is like the first time this ever happened. So like, this is the first time this ever happened. And you got to give them a little bit the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, they got to fix this problem, because right now, if you are looking for news on what is going on in the Constitutional Convention, it's either not clear at all, there are conflicting accounts, there are fake news.
You honestly have to follow...
And it's just like chaos. You get more criticisms than actually opinions in favor of what is going on.
You need to, honestly, like, the best person to follow for this news is Boric on Twitter. He almost daily gives updates about, like, what's happening or whatever, and talks about things, and the people of his upcoming administration are like trying to communicate. But again, that's not their jobs. That they're trying to do this and communicate, but there's got to be somebody.
Yeah, it's gotta be somebody.
None of this surprises me, because we are in Chile.
Yeah.
They're set infrastructure that's organized and gonna get everything ready to where it needs to be and easily communicated and like functioning like Greece? Absolutely fucking not. Okay, so Chile plans to create a 900-ton fish farm for kingfish. So Chile's real big on fish farms, and it's not always a good thing, but another one's coming for kingfish. So it's a $25 million project that will be provided by Aqua Mouth, which is, it's like Mao, like Mao Zedong. Anyway. Just FYI. I was like, is this a Chinese play? Anyway, the farm will be located in Tongoy.
But it wouldn't be kingfish. It would be like worker fish or something.
Okay, so it plans to produce 900 tons of fish per year in the first phase. But it's predicted to double after its first phase, which I'm not quite sure how long the first phase is. It doesn't specify here. Kingfish is known in the Japanese market as iramasa, and it is used for sashimi and likely valued in markets in the U.S. and also in Brazil. So Roberto Tischler says, we are honored to have signed the contract with AYT and grateful for the efforts of our local partners in ENOC to make it happen. And he's the sales director of Aqua Mouth. And he said that in a press release. He also said this project is strategically important for Aqua Mouth in Chile. We look forward to working with AYT to supply the most upscale markets with high-quality yellowtail kingfish. We consider this to be the next bluefin tuna, grown in a healthy and controlled environment without the use of antibiotics or chemicals. The result is a healthy, nutritious, and fresh source of seafood produced in a sustainable way while safeguarding fish welfare through their life cycle and optimizing the human resources required to be involved in the process. So says he.
That's just like something that only like a fish farmer would say. I was like, oh yeah, kingfish is the next bluefin tuna. Like,
Right?
It's a new black.
I was like, I don't know what that means,
Yeah,
but
but
okay.
it sounds very
But it sounds
convincing.
nice. And he's saying all these nice things, but I'm just like, fish farming is not something that's super great. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not a fish. Are you a fish farmer? Message us on Instagram at Chile Today Podcast. Or email us chiletodaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know. What do you think of kingfish,
Can you say
yellowtail?
the company name again?
What is it? Aquamouth.
Oh, you put such a nice stress on the F. Aguamau.
Yeah, because it's not Aquamouth, which would be even more hilarious. It's Aquamouth.
Right.
Like when somebody punches you in the mouth and you try to say mouth, you say mouth. No? Okay.
Yeah, no, I got it. But it's funny, since we talked about the MCU universe before we hit record, like now that I hear Kingfish, I just imagine...
Kingpin?
Yes, I just imagine fish in a white suit and like a cane or something like that, like a big old
Kingpin.
fish.
Oh,
like
man.
beating the shit out of somebody, I don't know.
Well, this guy says, respect for the environment and the development of sustainable fish farming facilities are key values for AYT. And that was Jorge Urrutia, who is the general manager of AYT. He says this is the first facility for the cultivation of yellowtail kingfish and it is a major part of the company's vision to establish a sustainable commercial production of the highest quality yellowtail kingfish. We strongly believe in and trust the Aquamouth RAS technology, which is integrated and operational facilities around the world. In addition to deploying the latest recirculation technology and processes, the Atacama Yellowfish Project will create approximately 50 new jobs, which is not that much, to be honest, at all, enabling the communities of Tongoy and Puerto Aldea to train and develop economic activities different from those traditionally available to them. So, there's going to be more fish in Chile, but probably not for Chileans, knowing how Chile works with fish. I'm sorry.
I'm
like
probably gonna export this to
we
Japan.
have the biggest coastline in the world, and our fish is so effing expensive because we export all the fish. Like we eat the frozen fish in like Chile.
Fish sticks.
Fish sticks. And it's like, oh, everybody wants to come to Chile for fresh seafood. Unless you want mariscos, like
I mean,
shellfish.
if you go to Valparaiso, you get fresh fish usually.
Sometimes. They make you think it's fresh. Not all the time it is. Most of the time it's not, really. Unless you're buying it from a fish market, it's probably not.
Tricky.
Tricky tracky.
Tricky dicky.
But the mariscos, the shellfish you're going to get, it'll be fresh. But fish, no.
Fresh shellfish. Fresh shellfish.
Sally sold seashells by the seashore.
Yeah,
there you go.
That.
You have something else.
Well, trying to keep with a little newly established tradition to end our news segment on a lighter note. So there was a news article that I found this week that the Chilean Twitter user at Seba20XX has casually discovered that the new HBO hit series Peacemaker with John Cena has been illegally downloaded to a computer with an IP that belongs to the Ministry of Finance.
The current Ministry of Finance?
Yes. I mean, not the minister, but it was in the ministry.
Who in Chile doesn't download movies?
Yeah, okay, but
it is like a rite of passage. You come to Chile, you get on Pirate Bay, and you download
but do
a
it on
movie.
your own time, man. I mean, look.
Oh,
okay.
but like, how do you know it wasn't on his own time? You don't know when he clocks out.
Yeah, but on your own computer at least. Like
Yeah, everybody
no,
watches porn on their computers at
Yeah,
work. Everybody
okay,
knows. I'm
look,
just kidding.
here-
I'm just
here's the
kidding. Don't do that. Don't do that.
So what he said, like he randomly picked an IP address that belonged to the Ministry of Finance. I don't know how he got that hunch, but okay, fine. I'm just gonna let this slip. This is public information, by the way. There's actually a Wikipedia page where you can look up
Wikipedia?
well, Wikipedia, whatever. Tomatopedia.
It's Wikipedia.
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 It's Wikipedia. If you,
It's
you might
encyclopedia.
you might have heard of it. It's on the internet. So yeah, it's public information. You can find out which IP addresses belong to public institutions here. I didn't know that, and I wouldn't really know why I would want to know that, but now I do know it.
Now I need to know everything.
Now I need to know
What
everything.
is Boric doing
Yeah.
on his? I just want to know what is he looking. Not like I don't care about like the actual political things.
Well,
I just
you-
mean, like,
you actually
how
can.
can I gain information to get in his good grade? He needs an English teacher. I'm here to
Well,
help.
you can find out
I
what
want
he
to be your best
downloaded.
friend and maybe your lover.
You can,
What?
okay.
I just want
you can-
power. I'm like half Slytherin. Okay,
I'm just
I
I'm
digress.
just gonna let this slide. It's fine. So what you can actually find out what he downloaded, because you can find out his. I don't know if they have the president's IP address per se public there, but It's public information for like computers that are in public institutions, and there's the search engine. It's called I know what you download. I think it's altogether.com.
Oh my god.
And and you can actually put your IP in there and see what you've done.
What I've downloaded?
Dude, I did this with mine, and I was like, I didn't download that. It's like, what the holy, really?
It's just like a virus or something downloaded
I don't know, man.
it for you?
Okay, look.
What is your wife doing?
I may or may have not downloaded things illegally in the past. The verdict is out on that one.
We're in Chile, it's fine.
But these things like that I've seen there is like, I don't know, what was it? Euphoria and something else?
You definitely watch Euphoria.
I don't know what that is.
I'm sure you're. Honestly, I bet it's
series,
Carolina.
right?
It's a really, really, really popular series on HBO.
But like, I mean, could be. Yeah, but it was also like I could ask, but like
It's
my
Carolina
computer's-
definitely
but
downloaded that.
What about my computer got its own IP? That's the thing. She got her IP anyway.
She did it on your computer.
No, she did not. We gotta have words then. Anyway, so I digress. So, but basically, what he did that he went on the website. He put in the IP address that he just like casually selected, and he was like, "Oh, look at that!" He downloaded Peacemaker, and he downloaded also the Eternals. And
Motherfucker.
yep. Now, of course, this is problematic.
Buy Disney Plus like all the rest of us.
This is, of course, problematic on a couple of levels because first, pirating copyrighted content is, of course, illegal, and doing so from a government machine is kind of spicy. I mean, come on. Like,
It's funny.
yeah.
It's fun. I mean,
Now,
I
but
really
I
don't
think- I
care,
think
but
the
honestly.
But the second thing is a bit more serious because it's really easy to get infected with malware when you do illegal downloads. Now, this is annoying for private users, but having a
Going back to
computer
China,
in the
malware.
government intranet that possibly and having that infected with a virus that contains sensitive information. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm
no.
banging the table because I'm making points. So yeah,
Making
this
moves.
this could be actually very catastrophic.
No.
This could be devastating.
It's completely honestly. It's probably some like boomer motherfucker who didn't know whose like grandchild taught them how to download things, and they're like, "This is cool. I'm gonna watch the Internals with my grandson
Right.
this weekend."
So yeah, that's that. So. But actually, it's a funny statement about the guy who
They
actually
need to-
tweeted these things. He was just like, "Well, I can blame him. It's a great series."
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that. So that's all I have for news.
That's fun. I mean, that's really great, Lenny.
That is great, isn't it?
It is so
Definitely.
great. Yeah,
Good
it's
night,
so
John Boy.
great. Good night, Sean. What are the other ones? Good night, Mary. I
Oh,
should
man,
know
oh,
this
man.
because
You
I'm
should
from
know that,
Arkansas.
actually. Is
But
it?
I've never actually seen it. No. I think they're in like Texas or Kansas
Yeah,
or some
it's
shit.
south.
It's not Arkansas. But yeah,
The
that was good. So we're gonna start after this. The Waltons. Wait, the Waltons?
Was it the Waltons?
No, the Waltons are from Arkansas.
No. I mean,
But
that
are they called the
series-
Waltons too? Dude, I don't fucking know. It's been a long time. See, I need to go
that
back and
series
visit.
was called what?
What? The Waltons are from Arkansas, but like the Walmart Waltons. Okay, we're getting way off. Okay, so so we're gonna start on our main topic today. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Goodbye. All right, guys, we're back for part 2 of our discussion and our thesis why Chile is not gonna turn into Venezuela anytime
Way easier
soon.
than my master's thesis, though.
Yeah, that
way more
thesis.
interesting. I don't know if it's more. Okay, getting distracted.
Getting off topic
Already
right off the bat.
distracted, already distracted.
already getting off topic. So, last time you tuned in, we were talking about the whole constitution drafting process and how this is different in Chile than it was in Venezuela. We weren't quite done yet. Penguin kicked us out, so we're gonna basically pick it up right where we left it off. So, what I was saying at the end of episode part 1 is that the plebiscite for the redrafting of the Chilean constitution had a turnout of almost 51%, which was way more than the 37.8% of the referendum for the redrafting of the Venezuelan constitution, but it was also the highest turnout in any popular vote in Chile since they did away with mandatory voting.
Except for the election of Boric,
which came after.
Which came after.
Until then, right? So, also, the redrafting of the constitution was eventually approved by 78% here in Chile, which, again, compare this to the 92.5%, respectively 86.5% in Venezuela, which also, it seems to me, a bit more credible or less on the extremes when it comes to
I don't know.
turnout and approval.
I
You
don't
know
know
what
if
I'm
the
saying?
UN was observing those elections. That's
Yeah,
that's
I don't
something
know that either. But
that's something that I would like to know.
right.
Like,
That's what I'm saying. This is my personal take right now.
Right,
here, so.
right. Because again, there are certain, from my perspective, there are certain elections that internationally, like some people are like, "Oh no, they were
Oh,
not
no.
democratic," and then the UN was like, "We were there, it was fine."
In
Just
Venezuela.
because, No, not necessarily. I'm just saying in general.
Okay, gotcha.
That if the UN's there to observe the elections and they're like, yeah, no, it was fine.
Okay.
And then they're like, but someone I didn't like won. It's like, okay, then the tough shit. They want like the U.S., right? Like people being like, Biden didn't win, Trump won. And it's like, no,
like,
it was observed internationally. Like he won. Calm the fuck down and shut up.
Yeah, but they're Illuminati and whatever, So so
the Red Planet.
Yeah, the Martians, the big Martians on the street.
The communist Martians from the Red Planet.
So on May 21, the Constitutional Convention was elected and consists of 12 political groups. Now, like proposals need a 2/3 majority, and while one could say that the convention consists of mostly left-wing blocs, which is fair, it's by no means a united left-wing bloc, not at all. Well, so therefore, radical
united
changes.
left-wing, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, what is that? What, like that never
that
existed.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, not since the collapse of the United States. I was just about to say the Soviet Union. Anyway, so, like, you can assume that there is not going to be radical changes. Actually, today I was reading in the news about the popular initiatives for the constitutional conventions, and there were a few very outlandish things in there, And there was one that was actually accepted about the abortion, the pro-abortion, which is probably going to make its way into the new constitution.
Of course.
And that was, as everybody expected
right.
Approved by most of the left-wing parties, but not by all blocs. Like some of the indigenous, how do you say, what is it called?
The indigenous communities.
Yeah, indigenous communities rejected that for whatever reason. I don't know, but they are usually counted to be among the left-wing bloc.
Right.
So there again, you don't have a united bloc there, right? So I think the biggest point of how the Chilean constitutional drafting process is different from the Venezuelan ones is that the Chilean Constitutional Convention has a lot more shackles than the Venezuelan Constitution.
Shackles sounds bad, but I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, well, limitations, let's say.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, tomato. Anyway, so let me start here. The Constitutional Convention has to respect. Tomatoes are red. Just saying.
What? Have you never had fried green tomatoes?
No, that's true. I have had. So the Constitutional Convention has to respect basic democratic order of the Chilean state and cannot impose itself upon other existing institutions such as the Congress, unlike it was the case in Venezuela, for example. However, it is also not beholden to neither the legislative or the executive. And
it's its own independent entity,
yeah,
basically.
And it can conceivably can conceivably change the form of government and turning it from that's just theory, but it could conceivably turn it from a presidential republic into a parliamentary one, and thereby effectively curtailing the president's power. So it could go either way. It's as you just said, it's an independent thing. It's not beholden to anybody, but they cannot do whatever the fuck they want. So
it's really it's very might I say revolutionary way to have a constitutional convention. I mean, if you look at the way that constitutional conventions have been, even in the U.S., the first constitutional convention, what we're doing in Chile is way more democratic than that ever would have been.
Yeah.
And even to this day, the Constitution, if you study constitutional law, you go to the U.S. to study constitutional law. They are the beacon of what constitutional law indicates. And so this is even more revolutionary and even more democratic than that ever will be. And so, and again, has been applauded internationally, the way that this constitutional convention is working, the way that it is split between genders, the way that it is split between indigenous people and non-indigenous people. It is considered like a beacon of what constitutional conventions should be.
Modern.
Modern. It's again, revolutionary, one could even say.
Exactly. Another thing is that the Constitutional Convention, it cannot change unilaterally the quorums that they needed to accept proposals, which means that the political powers with a majority in the Constitutional Convention cannot consolidate the power in this way, which is also a big point because people were very afraid when the Constitutional Convention was elected. That it was like, oh my God, the left wing is going to take all the power. It's just like, no, chill out. First, as we just mentioned, it's not one united front there. And also, you still have a 2/3 majority, and you cannot neither up it or lower it. Like, they just can't do it. And also, and I think this might even be the biggest point, because this is such a misunderstanding, because they always talk about hoja en blanco, like rewriting of the Constitution from a empty piece of paper.
We're just starting from zero, everybody says, and
Which
they get
is
really scared of that.
absolutely not the case. They
No,
will
not
not
at all.
start from scratch because they must, and because that was laid out in we give just a little bit of background information. After the estallido social, the social outbreak, the involved interest groups, let's say, they signed an agreement that they hashed out with the government, which is called the Agreement for Peace, which kind of laid the groundwork for how this is going to work. And in this piece of paper that they signed, it said that they must respect any and all previous court rulings as well as international treaties and agreements, of which there are currently 407 international treaties,
100%.
27 universal human rights treaties, 29 free trade agreements. So these include the American Declaration of Rights and Duties of Man of 1948, which was signed in Bogota, and also the Supreme Court ruling on the rights of private property in 1984,
Right.
which is not a good year.
but the point here is even to this day, even right this day, people are talking about how the Constitutional Convention are going to make them lose their property, going to do all of these things. And I'm like, look, that physically, legally cannot happen. You with your 5 homes are fine. Calm down. Eat a pizza.
So but as you just basically just reiterated there are a lot of things that the Constitutional Convention cannot overthrow or overrule.
It is so democratic.
They cannot declare its own sovereignty. They cannot dissolve Congress. They cannot turn Chile into a dictatorship. They cannot abolish private property. They cannot establish a single economic system as the official one. They cannot put itself above the law and abolish things like the freedom of worship. That's another thing. All these things they cannot do, which means that they're absolutely not starting from scratch.
They're not starting from scratch at all.
Things might change,
Sure. No, things
might
should
change. For example, the end of
change.
privatization of basic commodities, and there's going to be probably a stronger and more expanded role of the state, but there's not going to be a huge overhaul. So all in all, when it's all done, the new constitution will also have to be approved by the electorate via a second referendum. So even if there was like a very outlandish revolution, like if they come up with a draft like, hey, look at this, everybody's supposed to wear pink pants now, and I don't know, have like a pineapple pizza for breakfast.
Did you hear the thing in Italy where the Italian guard
the
Italian guard were given pink face masks? They were just like, they were like, the state donated face masks to all the police, and they were pink, and they refused to wear them because they were pink.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, masculinity is super fragile.
Yeah.
I wear a pink face mask, people are going to think I'm a woman.
Oh, you mean masculinity?
Oh! That was good. Masculinity.
We're going to lose so many subscribers.
Oh, no. That is so funny. I think I'm going to write my next thesis on fragile masculinity.
Well, credit me, please. I don't know.
This is dedicated to Lenny. He said words once.
He said words.
They might have been inspiring.
I'm a wordsman. So what I was saying is that even if the Constitutional Convention comes up with an extremely outlandish draft of the Constitution, which makes us wear pink pants to work and have us eat pineapple pizza with crickets on top for breakfast every day, whatever, like, this still needs to be approved by the people.
Right. So we have to actually accept the Constitution once it's been written. We can literally reject it, and they could go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. No. I don't think. Okay. It's not very.
It's not clear if they, at that point, they can rewrite it, or if because I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would like to know that, because that's a
I read
big
it at
thing.
one point. There is an actual episode about this that now I have forgotten what I said about it, but it was back in season 1. I'm pretty sure they have like one other chance to rewrite it, and then if they can't get an approved vote, something like that, and then it's done.
That'd be great, because I was thinking, like, okay, if they come up with a thing where I'm just
it's similar.
It's
similar to the way that they do things here, where they like write a law, and then they send it to one chamber, and then that chamber's like, no, rewrite it, and then they send it back, and then they send it. But if it doesn't get approved again,
I wouldn't want to be presented with a choice between like rock and a hard place. Just like, really, like, this is shitty, but I don't want to go back to the old one. Like, so. Don't we have the choice to just, draw it over a little bit, or work on it, or tweak it?
I think it's similar, and I'm talking about an asshole right now, but I think it's similar to my Delano. Throwback to the previous episode. That it's similar to the way they do laws here, which is like they move it to one chamber. If that chamber rejects it, then they have the ability to rewrite it. and then send it back to the chamber. It just can't be rejected twice. I think it's similar to that situation.
Kind of a compromise there.
Pinguino says he actually doesn't know either from his face.
I know how the laws work, but not how the Constitution works.
Right. Well, it's...
The laws just keep going back and forth.
Well, thanks for your contribution.
Thank you. That was great.
No, but like the law goes back and forth between Congress and Senate
until everything. But if it's approved to be rewritten, or if it's approved, right? Because if somebody's like no, and then it goes back, and they're like no, then it just fucked. It gets fucked.
Yeah,
actually, I might have to research that.
So.
Yeah, that'd be good to know. Fucking politics in this country. I'm
Okay.
telling you.
I'm telling you.
No, you don't know half of it.
I literally probably only know the half of it.
Yeah, not even that. So, let me continue with the fourth point that I have highlighted here, which is that the Chilean political left does not, and in recent history never had, the additional unconditional support of the armed forces.
Oh, that's such a good fucking point.
That is one big of it. I think that might actually one of the most important thing. You know, because while Chavez himself, a military man, like Chavez was a military man, he was a colonel back then.
Just a cute old chubby military man.
He tried to take power by force twice in 1992, failed. You know, in Chile it was the political right that usurped Allende in 1973.
Usurper did it.
Yeah, they took him out. You know, just don't forget that.
What the hell about the CIA? Let's not forget that.
Personally, and that's a personal opinion, I think. One sad truth is that the military.
Wait, what's a personal opinion?
No, that is what I'm about to say now.
Oh, not the CIA thing, because that's a fact.
No. It's not my personal opinion that what happened in 1973 is my personal opinion.
Have you not read history?
Exactly.
About to jump over the table.
Yeah, it's my opinion that this happened in 1973. No, what I'm saying is, like, personally, I think it's one sad truth that the military is pretty much always on the side of the political camp that promises them more benefits in a way, that keeps them more cushy.
Stuffs.
So Maduro right now keeps his senior military officers in important and influential positions to keep them in good spirits and on his side, you know. Boric, on the other hand, is fighting an uphill battle right now because he wants to do away with the army's privileges, such as the military pension fund, for example. So it would be absolutely against their own interest for the Chilean armed forces to support a leftist coup.
To be clear, he doesn't want to get rid of their pensions, like them not have pensions. He wants to because right now if you're in the military, you have better pensions than the rest of the population. Yeah. He wants to make it equal to where to where if you're in the military, it doesn't matter. If you're in the military, that you're going to have the same pensions. You're not going to get a privilege, right?
Right.
But he also wants to up the pensions that everybody gets. It's not like we're going to decrease your pensions, fuck you. It's like, no, the idea is that everybody's going to benefit.
Right, okay, yeah.
Let's clarify that.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification. Yeah, but he definitely wants to do away with the privilege. Basically, he wants to
certain military privileges.
Exactly, he wants to equalize. So basically, the military has no reason to support a coup. Right. Like, why would they support a coup?
Also, I think that it is also important to point out for people from the U.S. who are listening, military history in the U.S. is very different than military history in Chile.
Yeah.
It's not the Chile hasn't been involved in the same amount of wars that the U.S. has. So, for example, there's a big history.
Low bar.
No. No, where I'm going with this is important. So there is a big problem in the U.S. where the military is very powerful, but the U.S. treats their veterans like shit. They don't have access to a lot of things. They don't have the health that they need and the support that they need once they're not overseas and fighting in the wars to support the U.S. anymore. And in Chile, people have privileges far greater than the normal Chileans. So they have better access to healthcare. They have better privileges and are not fighting anything. The only thing that they're fighting is their own people. And so when we say, like, when we make a statement like their privileges need to maybe like be curbed a little bit, you put it into perspective of the two different aspects and systems and effects here. Like, it's not like we're trying to take healthcare away from traumatized people who don't have good pensions or anything like that. It's like, no, this is a privileged class.
Yeah.
And we're trying to even that out rather than this is a class that has been abused by a government and not supported in the way that they need, especially when it comes to health. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify
No,
that.
I mean that's actually
For
I
our
appreciate
US
that. That was a good
listeners,
clarification.
for our US
to that.
listeners,
Yeah,
yeah.
It's not like he wants to,
No.
do
What
away with everybody.
Right,
just
because
like,
that would sound devastating, right?
Yeah.
To if you like I did. I grew up in the U.S. Like the idea of like people in my family like getting their health or something else or their pensions taken away, like that's all they have, and they barely have that.
No, it's not at all like this.
It's not like that.
Yeah. Right, and then I have another quick point, because that was actually all I needed to say about that. I think there's not much more to be said about this.
Sure.
I have another point which might be a little shaky, but I think it's worth mentioning, because you also have to, when you compare Chile to Venezuela, you also have to consider that Chile is its own country, as you just said, with its own history and its own culture and a rather strong democratic base. Like, well, not perfect. Like, Chile has strong democratic institutions and can point to a slow and steady economic growth, which makes for a strong societal foundation, And one could make the case that free and fair elections are necessary, but not enough for a country to keep its democratic foundation. Just as, and if not even more important, I think, is our citizen participation, political representation, and political equality. And if people do not feel represented by the country, if people do not feel represented, the country is at a higher risk of backsliding into authoritarian regimes. And lately, I think we've seen a lot of this in Chile. I mean, the good stuff. Increased political interest, not the backsliding.
I mean, we did see Cast, so...
No, we've seen increased political interest and participation.
Sure.
Look at the Estallido Social, look at the turnout at the last couple of elections, just to give you a few examples. And with the incoming administrations, there's also a much greater emphasis on political representation through diverse government in terms of gender, ethnicity, and regionality. You've talked about this
more
before.
Representation. Like,
So,
we're not having
exactly.
less representation. We're not
more.
having one aspect of one political party and one type of person making decisions here. And the thing is what's even more interesting is this is being pushed by the left to make more people, more ideas, more communities involved, while the fear of the right, which is unfounded, is that it's only going to be one radical left. But it's like, no, like, it's the opposite, right? It's there's a desire for more representation. I think that Chile is wonderfully situated because they have, the moment that we're here in history, we have had the privilege to learn from the mistakes of Venezuela, of other countries, of other right-wing countries.
Yep.
And we have seen those scars and that damage. And it is 2022, and we have a privilege and a great opportunity to take all of the lessons from the right, from the left, and implement them in Chile in a really positive way. And I think, like, there is going to be a natural fear. Change is always scary.
Oh, yeah.
And there are going to be bumps along the road here. I mean, you and I were talking off air about how Chile is trying to go coal-free by 2025, and we know that that's just not possible.
Bupkis.
And that's going to be a growing pain for us because we're going to push for something we're not really ready for. And so we might see some electrical grid bumps in the road. But we got to know that that's a growing pain to where we want to be, which is completely non-dependent on coal. You know, but there are going to be bumps. There might be nights when you and I don't have electricity. And that's, you know what? Those few years of that is going to be so much worth it in the future when we don't have any dependence on coal.
Yeah.
So
it's when all is well.
When all is well. Anyway, so
yeah, so
welcome
that
to my
would
TED
be
Talk.
that will be that. Yeah, exactly. So, as you said, as I said, as we said, we right now are seeing a citizenry that has grown a lot more interested in the political ongoings. I mean, there has been a lot of apathy throughout the last couple of years, I think, when it comes to political issues, and I think this has radically changed in 2019. Personally, I don't know. You might disagree there, but I also see that right now, as I said, like with the new government, there's going to be a lot more emphasis on diversity.
Speak up a little.
Yeah, when you get passionate, you for some reason like you go down, which is weird.
Just very intellectual.
It's the opposite of me. I get loud.
No, what I'm saying is that I've seen, and that's also again a personal opinion, I've seen there has been a lot of apathy lately throughout the last decades from the citizenry here in Chile.
In Chile, okay.
And which is because they were very disappointed with the political elites because they didn't make good on the promises, they didn't deliver on the promises that they made. And I think all this has, like, we've reached a tipping point in late 2019 when we had the social outburst, and I think we are basically on a rising curve again when it comes to citizen participation, political interest, and all these things, representation. And I think, like, now participation came first, and now representation will follow, because now we have an incoming administration that places a high value on representation in terms of gender, in terms of regionality, in terms of ethnicity.
Right.
And I think this is going to be such an important factor when it comes to avoiding Chile to slide back into whatever left or right-wing authoritarian regime people might fear might happen.
It's super interesting because I remember when Piñera got elected, and a lot of people had high hopes. A lot of right-wing people had high hopes of this continued push of money that's going to be flooding into Chile, and that didn't happen.
Also, like, you got to mention that when Piñera came into power for his first term, that was the first time since the end of the dictatorship that a center right-wing government.
Yeah, I'm talking
took
about the
power.
second time.
Okay.
I'm talking about the second time.
Gotcha.
The most recent election that Piñera won, like, there was, there's all those memes that was like, this is what, better times, right? Like, he's going to bring out better times. And I think what you said, which is that people don't feel represented, is the biggest thing. Like, Piñera got back in power, and nothing good happened. Nothing happened. It was like nothing happened. It wasn't good. It was just like, you're not doing anything. You're not doing shit. Like, what are you doing?
The estallido happened. the
but
pandemic
because
happened.
the only thing people saw is the same thing people fear from the left, which is prices were rising, things were going up, and nothing was happening. And so the left was mad and the right was mad. They were like, what are you doing? You're not doing this. And anytime we saw a law trying to get pushed into Congress, it got rejected because of the way that the Constitution was. And so people were like, this, I see now there is a sickness here, which is the Constitution, that is not allowing, it doesn't matter what affiliation you're from, left or right. If you want to change the law, you can't with the current Constitution. We have to have a Constitution that's going to represent the people, meaning the world is changing. Whatever the law is that the world's going to want now and in the future needs to be able to happen. No matter where you're from, left, right, up, down, I don't care. You have to have something that's going to represent the people. Laws that represent the people, not just the Constitution.
And that's the thing, and that's also the case. And why am I bringing this up? Because
I don't know.
I know what I'm saying is that, and you might argue though with me, I don't see the same level of representation happening in Venezuela right now, nor did I see this happen in the 90s when Chavez took power. There was always some kind of, as far as I know, discrimination going on, and people were not feeling represented. And people were like
100%.
apathetic.
No.
They were giving up,
Yeah, going back to Venezuela, like, because we were focusing. Yeah, we were focusing on Chile, but going back to Venezuela, you're right, because again, it's a different type of left.
Yeah.
Chavez is a communist. Boric is not. That is important because Chavez and communism in and of itself has. Not all communists are this way, but there is an authoritarian streak and says, like,
hashtag not all communists.
Hashtag not all communists. But Chavez was this way, which is this must get done, and I will do it.
No matter the cost.
No matter the cost, for the greater good.
Yeah.
Dumbledore, Grindelwald, hashtag Dumbledore, Grindelwald. I will do it for the greater good. And that is what Chavez was saying. And there is a lot of people who believe in that. That is not Boric. At all. He has never been that way. You can go look at Boric being involved in politics since he was 15 fucking years old, and he has never been that way. You'll never hear him say that. He has always been a supporter of the democratic process and the supporter of the people. Now, he has gotten in people's faces about what he believes.
And fight for it.
And he will fight for what he believes in. I'm not trying to say, like, he isn't going to fight for what he believes in, but he is not an authoritarian at all.
No. Not at all.
It's unfair, unfounded, and just incorrect to compare Maduro, Chavez to Boric. It's just not correct.
Yeah.
It's the only reason people are doing it is because of fear mongering and fake news. And literally, I have here that there are places. There are what is it called? Financial 24, which is a financial, like, investing guide newsprint. Why can't I use a word really? What's website,
Publication.
but like that one even said like it telling people who they should invest in, and it said like you should invest in Chile. That the idea of it becoming like quote social leftists in Latin America is quote fake news. So it's even said that like don't be afraid to invest in Chile. The idea that it said Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru. It even compared all of those. It said Chile's not the same, which that's another discussion for if you think.
And also, I mean, sorry, just side note there. This whole thing, what really pisses me off is the whole right-wing platform was campaigning on the idea that as soon as Cast got into power, there's going to be order and peace and quiet on the street, and people are going to come back and invest. It's like, no, absolutely not. This is not going to happen. Like, especially when Cast wins.
Has people not been paying attention to the whole point of that? Anybody who thought that was not paying attention to the estallido. Like, the estallido happened because right-wing people were pressuring the left. Not the left, the citizens. And they were charging too much money that people can't afford. And Gas is like, there'll be order? No, there would have been more death because there would have been more marches. That's not order. You want more death?
And people were like, well, Boris is going to, up the taxes and scare away business. I'm just like, look, like, if it was under Cast right now, do you think business would invest here when the streets are literally on fire?
No, because that's the thing is it would be. Because the thing is protests in Plaza de la Dignidad have been decreasing. Protests from the right have been increasing. Violence has been increasing. They're like, oh, from the immigrants because of drugs. No, it's the right wing being racists. Like, that has been the problem. Would Cast have done anything against them? No, because he supports the truckers. He's always supported the truckers.
No, I don't know if there.
Back to when Allende, he supported the truckers.
No, I don't really know if there has been an increase or not an increase in drug-related violence when it comes to the immigrants, but I think the problem here is bigger insofar as that why, like, you gotta ask yourself, why are there drug-related problems and crimes from foreigners to begin with, you know? Yeah. And there you come back to integration and, you know, immigration politics of the left versus the right.
Right. Also, who's buying the drugs? The immigrants are not
that too. You know, why do they resort to selling drugs in the first place?
Honestly, Chile is the biggest user of marijuana per capita of any country in Latin America. Chileans. Who's buying those drugs? And so if we're gonna not talk about marijuana because you're like, oh, those are not really drugs. Who's buying cocaine? I'm telling you, it ain't the poor people in Chile. It's the rich people in Chile. Because you go to a party and there are rich people there, you see cocaine. You go to a party and you go to a party with like working class people. You're drinking pisco, and you maybe one guy got some marijuana, but it's just infuriating, this whole idea. Not that I'm supporting the use of hard drugs
or devil's lettuce.
Do what you want to do. I don't care about the devil's lettuce. It's legal to smoke devil's lettuce in Chile, so do what you want.
See, this is why we're going downhill.
I know, but it's like I'm tired of these people that I see, and I know they do cocaine. Like, I've met them. I've seen them do cocaine at somebody's wedding on somebody's table, and they're like, those immigrants bringing drugs. I'm like, stop buying cocaine! Like, stop it. Like, just be consistent. Like, you could be like, I don't do drugs, blah, blah, I don't support drugs, and I don't, like, because people... You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
I'm angry.
I think you have a little bit more to say. Because,
oh, yeah, I have more to say. So what I focused on was, Lenny focused on Venezuela in and of itself. It's an internal politics. So something that I focused on was sort of external politics that affected the way that Venezuela is functioning right now as a country. So what I mean by external politics is like Cold War politics and sanctions and embargoes that have been imposed on Venezuela since the left wing has taken over, which has greatly affected the way that the government is allowed to operate and the way that the citizens have access to resources. So I focused on U.S. sanctions because that's, basically a thing. So the U.S. started imposing sanctions as soon basically as Chavez took over. These sanctions not only affected Venezuela themselves, but also any country that works with Venezuela on certain in certain aspects. So let me see. I'm free of that. Okay, so the first and major sanction I'm going to talk about is, quote, free. This is from the U.S. website. This is from the United States websites. You can look them up. These are quotes. The U.S. implemented, quote, freezes on assets to designated entities and individuals that have under U.S. jurisdiction and prohibits U.S. persons from conducting financial or commercial transactions involving any assets. So what this means is that any U.S. individual or U.S. company cannot do any transactions in Venezuela. None.
Right.
No investments. You cannot give money to Venezuelans as an individual entity, and Venezuelans cannot take money from the U.S. So the effect of this, obviously, was really great on Venezuela. Plus, there are currently millions and millions and millions of dollars in the U.S. that are in bank accounts that the Venezuelans hold. But the Venezuelan people in the countries cannot access it because all of those assets were frozen. So let's say that you're a Venezuelan with an investment in the U.S., a huge investment, you're fucked. You don't have that. So,
Your 5 houses.
right. So the reason I mentioned this particular sanction, and I'm mentioning sanctions here, is because I'm going to try to make a relationship between why this would not happen in Chile. Mm-hmm. One huge reason is because we got a lot of billionaires in Chile. A lot of billionaires who own a lot of assets in the U.S. and vice versa. And it is very beneficial to the U.S. government, especially since Luksic actually works with Donald Trump's family, to have these investments in the U.S. And it would be non-beneficial to the U.S. to freeze these types of transactions, especially since you have transactions between lithium to the U.S., you have transactions between copper in the U.S., all of that kind of things, if the same exact sanction would be on Chile, could not happen. But the thing is the only resource and the only gain that the U.S. had with Venezuela was oil, which they weren't getting. They weren't getting oil from Venezuela. They were getting oil from the Middle East and from themselves.
Okay. Because I was just about, couldn't you make the point that before all the sanctions were levied upon Venezuela, couldn't you also make the point that there are a lot of billionaires, millionaires, Venezuelan millionaires that have a lot of investment? I mean, there used to be,
but it's not mutual. It's not mutual.
It's not mutual,
right? Okay. So, honestly, I don't know how many billionaires Venezuelans there are, because again, the state owned the oil industry. Because
what I'm saying is, before the sanctions came into effect, I assume that there has been a mutually beneficial trade relationship between U.S. and Venezuela, and at some point they were like, okay, we're going to cut this off, and which, just a sidebar. I'm not against sanctions per se. They're still it's better than all out war. But the big problem with broad sanctions instead of targeted sanctions is that it affects the general populace a lot more than the people in charge, because the people in charge always have a way out.
Which, here's the thing, that is what these sanctions are doing. It is squeezing the general population more than it's ever going to squeeze the government. So the general population that has money in the U.S. that was using that money for investments, they have now been cut off from all of that money. They have no access to it. For example, my mother-in-law, she has money in the U.S. that she's invested. If the same thing were to happen in Chile, she would be cut off from $10,000 that she used. That was what she inherited from her husband when he died. And that's the money, and she put it there that she could invest in the U.S. It would be gone, completely gone. And she would be like,
did she put it there because she was afraid of Boric?
No, it was more.
That would be ironic.
Investment in dollars. It's
Gotcha.
It's one of those things.
Yeah.
He had some investments there, and she kept it in dollars. But imagine an entire country who no longer has access to their assets. However, so answering your question, no billionaires because again, the only commodity in Venezuela was oil, and it was nationalized oil. What we're talking about in Chile is we have many commodities, the majority of them privatized. And so we have people like Luksic, who's a billionaire, who's one of the richest people in the world, and Piñera, who own industries. Not only does the U.S. have investment in their industries, they have investments in the U.S. It is mutually beneficial to not have those types of sanctions. Because at the end of the day, the U.S. is going to be recognizing how this country can be beneficial to them as well. Because in the mind of a lot of people, a good representation of how successful a country is how much a country is able to internationally make money.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. So, okay. So in 2014, during Venezuelan protests, which you also talked about, sanctions were also enforced due to human rights violation, which is really interesting.
In 2014? No, I didn't talk about that, though.
Okay, so there were protests in 2014 against the government.
Yeah. No, I was talking about the protests in the 80s, but that was against the right-wing government before Chavez came into power.
Okay. So 2014, there were more sanctions put against the Chavez government for human rights violations because, unlike what you were talking about, which was protests against the right-wing government, this is protests against the left-wing government.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought down these sanctions because of human rights violation, which is super interesting because not all of these human rights violations were recognized internationally, and yet many of the human rights violations that happened in 2019 in Chile were recognized internationally. Yet we don't have any sanctions. And that's because, again, sanctions from the U.S. are non-beneficial.
Yeah. And also, I guess probably also because there wasn't a president yet. You know what I mean? It's like because...
In 2014 in Venezuela?
No. Here. That's the thing. Because...
In 2019? We had a president.
No, but a president for...
Oh, precedent.
Not a president. A precedent.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying is there's no precedent in Chile for sanctions. Like, I guess I'm just, speculating here, but I would say, like, there were human rights violations in 2014 in Venezuela, and people were like, oh, there's an outrage. And just like, yeah, let's slap on a few more sanctions onto, the Venezuelan economy because
we might as well.
We might as well because we've already done that, right? And people be like, the world community be like, oh yeah, had it coming.
Why not?
But in Chile would be like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. Like, that would be the first time that...
Yeah, that would be like a super invasion of...
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense what you're saying. But in addition, during this time, many visas from government officials to the U.S. got revoked. So they could not even travel to the U.S. to, like, discuss things that were happening. And those are more like minor sanctions. So imagine, like... Instead of them in Chile being like, oh, you raped a lot of women in jail, carabineros, so we're going to actually do something like revoke some visas for, I don't know, some diplomats. Nothing happened. The U.S. did nothing. They could have done something to recognize that there were human rights violations happening in Chile, which there were, which nothing has still happened, which is something Boric promises to do, is to recognize, like, and to do something about these human rights violations. But
I was just going to say that, yeah, I mean, it was right-wing government.
No, I mean, like, that's the point, right? Like, what I'm trying to say is that these are sanctions that aren't going to happen in Chile because they're not beneficial. All of the sanctions that were had towards Venezuela were beneficial to the international community, specifically the U.S. And the U.S. right now is looking very favorably on Chile. And these sanctions very much, very palpably affected the way that Venezuela was able to function, right? If you have okay, so for example, no transactions. That means not a one of any investor, private, anything can invest in Venezuela. Not a one in the U.S. Not an individual investor, not a company can invest in Venezuela. And I don't give a shit how sexy your oil is. You cannot invest in Venezuela. They also said, if you are an international company and you want to invest in Venezuela, we will sanction you. So imagine how that affects a country as small as Venezuela. So, for example...
Yeah, because if no country on this planet wants to fuck it up with the U.S.
No. And so not only are they saying U.S. people...
I mean, except for Cuba and North Korea, whatever.
US, right. But... They also cut off and sanctioned any shipments to Venezuela. If you have a shipping company and you are shipping anything to Venezuela, you are sanctioned.
Sanctioned. The Shawshank Redemption.
The Shawshank Redemption. So that means if you're buying oil, if you're giving resources, you have been sanctioned by the U.S. because you are providing aid or not providing aid, because they don't say that. Like, you're allowed to provide aid, but you're not allowed to ship anything to Venezuela.
Yeah, gotcha.
Right. That's the difference. Again, imagine how this affects a country who's already being squeezed internally with a lot of different problems.
Yeah.
Right? Again, that
Wouldn't
is what
happen
happened
here.
to Venezuela. What I'm trying to say is this would not happen to Chile because of a lot of reasons. Chile internationally has many, many, many investments in many, many different countries, including the U.S. Chile is the second, I think, biggest exporter of fruit to the U.S. The U.S. didn't want to lose that. The U.S. needs that shit. They also have huge mining companies, and especially with the growth of lithium that is happening, and we're going to talk about an entire episode of the podcast with that, it is not beneficial to the U.S. to put sanctions on themselves or international companies.
Yeah.
Okay, so also not surprisingly, the U.S. sanctioned a lot of energy companies that work to help provide Venezuela with energy. So something that you and I have heard, probably you as well, is that Venezuela has a lot of rolling blackouts and brownouts and things like that. Yeah. That is because the U.S. has put large sanctions on any country who agrees to provide any sort of electrical energy to Venezuela. So that forces Venezuela themselves to produce all of their own energy. And this would never happen in Chile because, again, Chile has been praised as one of the greenest energy countries internationally, which is great, but also green energy is a huge investment. Like, the reason Chile does this 100% is because of money.
Yeah, and they pledged to become one of the greatest green hydrogen exporter within the next couple of years, right?
And again, internationally benefiting people who need the green hydrogen.
Yeah.
And also the majority of the energy company producers in Chile are international companies. Gener is a huge company, and it is from the U.S. There's also a huge company that owns 10% of the market that I can't remember its name. Is from France.
Enel, I think, is Italian.
Yeah, and these are international companies who invest in Chile. And so we have... Although the energy grid in Chile is not the best, it is a huge investment opportunity for both Chile and the international community. And again, this is just a way that the U.S. has been able to squeeze Venezuela because there's no mutual beneficial reason for the U.S. not to do this in Venezuela.
But then, my naive question though, but then why do it at all? Just like from an ideological standpoint, just to prove a point?
The idea of putting sanctions... I mean, okay, let me ask you. Why do people put sanctions on countries?
Oh, because they might do something that affects you negatively.
No. Sure.
That too.
But typically sanctions are put on a country to, like, squeeze a country into pressuring them not to do something.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And so in the case of Venezuela, a lot of these were... punishments for decisions made. Again, the idea or the reason why the U.S. is giving sanctions specifically to Venezuela is like sort of like a punishment sort of thing. The reason they're doing sanctions to Russia is preemptive because they know or they think they know that Russia's going to invade Ukraine, which from my understanding from, again, news that is in English, which is, again, take that as it, English and Spanish, is that the Russia is planning to invade Ukraine, which they have done again in the past. Which, again, we are not talking about Russia and Ukraine. I don't know crap about that. I know more stuff about Venezuela and Chile. The Venezuela and the Chile? What? The what?
Niet.
Okay. So,
Okay, that went right over, yeah.
any provisions from Russia has also been sanctioned. Any provisions from Cuba have also been sanctioned to the U.S., and especially countries like Cuba who already don't have a lot of resources. It's not worth it for them to try to provide anything to Venezuela if they're going to be super sanctioned by the U.S.
So that kind of basically answered my question that he's saying that right now it's mostly for ideological reasons.
Right. So
there's no concrete benefit. It's just like, how do you look on the political stage if you do that or don't do that as the U.S.?
Right. Something that's also interesting is in the past, having a relationship with China was seen as something that was really negative with governments, because China used to be like one of those governments, like with Mao and everything, that provided things only to left-wing countries. Now that is not the case. So the fact that Chile
China
has
provides everything to everybody.
Exactly. Now that and nowadays China is sort of seen as a country that has provisions and will take provisions, and it's apolitical. It's not politically associated. So the fact that Chile has a close relationship with China, according to Foreign Policy, which again, like I said, is a pretty moderate right-wing-ish magazine, is not seen as something that is going to negatively impact Chile as far as what the international community is going to see Chile as. I mean, we have been one of the biggest receivers of Sinovac, and we have a Sinovac factory in Chile, and at no point has anybody been like, how dare you, or anything like that.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's also in China's interest to forge ties with the quote-unquote third world, which is what they have been doing for quite a while now.
Right. And that is not not in any way seen by the U.S. media as something negative that Chile is doing. It's just something that seems natural. It's not something the U.S. chooses to do, but it's something that it's like, yeah, why not? Why wouldn't you? And, of course, the relationship between China and Chile is huge. Ultimately, talking about sanctions and what you're thinking and what you've been saying is, I think Chile is uniquely positioned in the way that it has fostered really great relationships internationally, that it's going to avoid a lot of the problematic things externally and internally that Venezuela has experienced.
Yeah, which is a nice summary of basically what you were saying, that is just, Chile has successfully networked so well and has basically their hands all over the place, all over the world, like business, political relationship, which, I mean, it's, I don't know if ironic is the term right now, but, you know, that has always been the idea and the benefit of global trade relationships, like avoid war or sanctions, avoid these kind of negative repercussions by expanding trade in a way, you know?
Chile is so interestingly unique. Like, more people, more countries, more theses need to be written about Chile and how it is so unique in the way that it has been able to sort of balance the edge of neoliberalism and leftism for a very long time. I mean, we did have a dictatorship, but like, look, we still had some like active hands in democracy. We got out of the dictatorship, for better or for worse, through a democratic election.
And this country has a active communist party,
and
which
it always has.
And this is not the case in the U.S. This is not the case in Germany, where these parties are banned. So you have a strong left-wing influence in this country still.
You have a strong left-wing influence, but also a very unique one, right? That we talked about earlier. This communist party that wants to operate within a new type of left, a new type of communism that wants to work democratically to gain Marxist goals, but in a democratic way and not necessarily a way by force. Because, again, I think something that's really important, and this is just my opinion, is when a political party feels represented, it's going to function in a way that it's supposed to. If the Communist Party feels represented, like, okay, my ideals can be reached if I have support, right-wing, left-wing, whatever, then you're going to have like sort of a satisfactory platform there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with that.
Yeah, it's like, I might not get my goals reached, but I know that there was a possibility there.
They have something to strive for in a way. They got a goal there, you know?
Right. So I know there's possibility here. It's not
they
like...
got direction.
Right. I think so. I think Chile is an amazing... I'm so excited to see what happens in Chile. I'm very optimistic, and I think that this is a really great time to be alive in a really great country. I'm super excited.
Oh, that's such a nice note to
leave on.
End it. I don't know how far along you are, but that's...
No, I'm done. This is it. That's
right,
it. That's it. I put most of my stuff with your stuff, and it's heartwarming.
Put most of your stuff with my stuff.
We put our stuff, we share. Put all my
honey,
stuff in your stuff.
It's not what it sounds like.
No, we're just good friends. We're just good friends. None of that stuff.
If
but
you're listening to this is not what it sounds like.
Yeah, but I hope you guys enjoyed our stuff. If you have any comments...
This was a very... I like this one.
This was
really
fun.
Interesting. And
I didn't scream too much at you.
Yeah, I didn't throw things at you. I'm proud of my restraint.
Whatever.
Oh, you big teddy bear.
I would throw things at you way before you would throw things
bring
at
it.
me. Yeah, right here. This is an empty bottle of Becker.
Throw
right
the,
there.
Throw the mic. Penguin is gonna be happy.
Yeah. But I think it was I really, if you guys have any comments or ideas, or if you have any ideas of what you want us to talk about in the future, you can always let us know. We have a Facebook and an Instagram at Chile Today Podcast. We have an email, chiletodaypodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from you if you're planning on visiting Chile.
If you want to call
Let
us
us know.
pinko commies, not like that happened before.
Oh, I mean, I've been called a vapid woman. It's been great.
Pile it on.
Pile it on.
See if I care.
Yeah, I definitely didn't lose sleep crying in my boyfriend's arm because somebody called me vapid for the first time in my life. Of all things, vapid? Really?
Did you get insulted by a writer from the 20s?
Anyway, so we love you guys. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed, and hope you guys come to some of our events. So, when in doubt,
Gringo out.
okay, bye.
Bye.
The Chile Today podcast is produced and edited by Podcast Pinguino Diego Rivera, and it is starring Leonard Kluge and Bethany Francis.
Oh, but one of these days I just want you to not butcher my name. Lennart Kluge, you mean?
Leonard Kluge. Bye!